The Detroit Lions are getting some reinforcements to open off their playoff run. Yesterday, we talked about Terrion Arnold, the former first round pick returning to the secondary after a foot contusion suffered in Week 18 versus the Minnesota Vikings. And today, we're going to talk about another player with some more injury updates and some more injury news as David Montgomery, the Detroit Lions' leading rusher going into Week 14, has officially been designated to return. Now, while not being put on injury reserve over the past month, David Montgomery has been limited. He has been kept out of practices, has been limited in the weight room, and has been more focused on the recovery aspect of his MCL injury as opposed to returning to the field immediately. However, after over 5 weeks of rehab time after missing 3 of the last games the Detroit Lions played, David Montgomery is set to return for the divisional round of the playoffs, and today, that is exactly what we will be taking a look at. The injury update on the Detroit Lions' leading rusher as of the time he was injured, and the return of Knuckles to the iconic duo. So, with that being said, let's kick off with the injury that started it all. As David Montgomery suffered a torn MCL against the Buffalo Bills in Week 14. He was kept out of the last 3 games of the NFL season, but as of last weekend, as of January 5th, he was in full rehab and was doing a full workout with the Detroit Lions. He didn't practice throughout the week, but he was doing full weightlifting, was fully active with the team, and seemed to be much closer to a return than even a lot of professionals thought would be possible at this point in his recovery. After tearing his MCL, he got multiple sources, and after it was originally reported that David Montgomery would miss the remainder of the 2024 season, he went and got a third opinion, decided to go the rehab route instead of taking a surgery to structurally repair the MCL damage, and it seems to be the right call. As I said, David Montgomery has been fully working out with the team, has been full go at lifts, and is expected to return for the Detroit Lions in the second round of the NFC playoff race. Taking a look at David Montgomery's year 2 in Detroit, he was off to a really good start. In 14 games, he led the team with 158 carries, 775 yards, and 12 touchdowns on the ground. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry, which is a slight downgrade from where he was a season ago, but is still very much up there with some of the best backs in the NFL, and at the time of his injury was within the top 10 NFL running backs in yards, touchdowns, while being outside of the top 15 in overall carries in the NFL. For his full time in Detroit, David Montgomery's now played 28 games in the Honolulu Blue, totaling 1,790 rushing yards, 25 touchdowns on the ground, and 4.4 yards per carry over the last 2 years. With the pace that he was on, David Montgomery could have potentially pushed for the Detroit Lions franchise record in touchdowns, but after the injury, that record was actually taken by his teammate in Jahmyr Gibbs, who finished with 20. David Montgomery has been the engine of the offense for the last 2 years. He's been a player that everybody can rely on, a great pass protector, a great short yardage back, a very elusive back, and an underrated back when it comes to that elusiveness. He has the power, he has the speed, he has the elusiveness to be a true running back one in the NFL. And splitting carries with Jahmyr Gibbs only makes him more efficient. They are one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 combos in the NFL, with Jahmyr Gibbs being the Sonic, and of course David Montgomery taking the role of Knuckles. The iconic duo across the league will officially be united in the divisional round of the playoffs, but a lot of people don't want them to. A lot of people say that David Montgomery should just sit this thing out and let the Lions keep leaning on Jahmyr Gibbs throughout their playoff race, as they have done over the last 3 contests. And unfortunately, they kind of have a point. Over the last 3 games, Jahmyr Gibbs has gone nuclear. In his first game without David Montgomery, 23 carries, 109 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, with 4 receptions for 45 yards. In his second game without David Montgomery, he had 18 carries for 117 yards and a touchdown, with 4 receptions and 46 yards through the air. And then in the last game of the season, in a battle for the 1 seed when the lights were the brightest, Jahmyr Gibbs went for 23 carries, 139 yards, 4 touchdowns, along with 5 receptions and 31 yards. He has been the best running back in football for almost a month at this point. He's been right up there with Saquon Barkley, right up there with Derrick Henry. He is one of the best running backs in professional football, and it's leading a lot of people and leading a lot of fans to want the Detroit Lions to keep leaning on Gibbs, to hold David Montgomery out, let him truly heal and truly get back into playing shape, and bring him back for, say, the Super Bowl, bring him back for, say, the NFC Championship game, or wait for next year and wait for it to truly heal and return to form. But honestly, I don't think that's the right idea. Even if David Montgomery returns, the Detroit Lions can lean on Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs can be the lead back throughout the playoffs, but adding David Montgomery to essentially upgrade over Craig Reynolds, who is also having a good season as a relieving running back for the David Montgomery injury, can only make this team better. It's going to improve the pass protection. It's going to improve short yardage downs. It's going to improve short yardage situations. And while David Montgomery may take some touches, he may take goal line carries, he may take red zone opportunities from Jahmyr Gibbs, the fantasy season is over. The Lions don't need to split carries necessarily. It doesn't matter who gets in the end zone for anybody at this point. If the Lions score touchdowns, they win football games. And that is the most important metric. And that is why they will bring David Montgomery back. It makes the football team better. And David Montgomery will make Jahmyr Gibbs more efficient. Jahmyr Gibbs will bring David Montgomery back up to speed. And this running back duo will take its place back atop the NFL as the league's best. Now, taking a look at the divisional round and who the Lions may play, there is quite a few options, right? They could potentially play the Minnesota Vikings in a round 3. The Detroit Lions are 2-0 against Minnesota this year, once with David Montgomery and once without. But Minnesota ranks second in the run defense. And the last time David Montgomery played the Minnesota Vikings, he had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown late in the fourth quarter that nearly cost the Detroit Lions the football game. David Montgomery has been fantastic throughout the season, but Minnesota was arguably the worst game he played against. They could potentially play the 6th-seeded Commanders, who have currently ranked as the 30th ranked run defense across the NFL. That would be massive for the Detroit Lions if they were to play that defense. They could potentially play the 7th-seeded Green Bay Packers, which would leave them with the 7th ranked rushing defense, and a team that David Montgomery was really good against. The last time they played on Thursday Night Football, David Montgomery had a touchdown, had the crucial 4th down conversion, and although didn't have a career day against Green Bay, made a lot of crucial plays in big moments and was able to help the Detroit Lions walk away with a victory. And of course, the last opponent could potentially be the Los Angeles Rams. The 4th seed in the NFC playoffs would travel to Detroit to take on a team that they opened their season against. The Los Angeles Rams rank as the 22nd run defense in the NFL, and we saw exactly what happened when the Detroit Lions went to overtime in week 1. David Montgomery had 6 carries for 60 yards, drove the team right down to the end zone, and walked in for the game-clinching score. David Montgomery is a great running back. David Montgomery is the engine that makes this team go. When things aren't going very well, David Montgomery is typically the player that gets the spark, right? He's typically the player that if you need 2 yards, you can hand it to him. If you're having trouble on short yardage situations, give it to David Montgomery. If you're having trouble starting drives, open up a drive with a handoff to David Montgomery. He may not break it for 70, but he's almost never going to go backwards. He's always going to pick up 3, 4 yards to keep a drive in line, to keep a drive with this momentum and keep the Lions going. Not that the Lions offense has struggled without him, but the Lions offense is significantly better with David Montgomery in than they are with David Montgomery on the bench. And with that being said, the Lions are going to return an absolute superstar. When Dan Campbell was asked about it this week, saying, "Do you believe that David Montgomery will play in the divisional round?" he had 2 words. Simply said, "I do." And I think that says everything you need to know. Dan Campbell has the confidence for David Montgomery to return. David Montgomery feels like he's physically ready to return. The medical staff is potentially going to clear him in 2 weeks. And the Lions will have their iconic duo back in the backfield. So with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Just a quick injury update on David Montgomery. He is expected to return for the divisional round. Whether they play the Vikings, Commanders, Packers, or Rams, David Montgomery will be a crucial part to that victory if it does happen, and will be a crucial part of the game planning process as well. So with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Let me know down in the comments below your opinions on the David Montgomery return, whether you want to see him return, whether you want to see him take more snaps than Jahmyr Gibbs in the playoffs, and what your expectations are for number 5 when he returns to the field. With all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.